Welcome to Something's Coming Up, where something is always coming up. I am your host, Kimberly Newton-Nichols, and it's my absolute pleasure today to have a special guest whom I love, and she's my family. Taylor Barry, welcome to Something's Coming Up.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your willingness to share and open up about what's going on in your life. So Something's Coming Up is basically that. Something's coming up, a purging, releasing. It could be something positive. It could be something negative. But from it all, something is coming up. It's coming out. It's changing. And we are to grow and learn from it. So I'm beyond ecstatic to have you here with me. I want to give my viewers a little background on you. So although Taylor looks like a baby, she is a college graduate, and I'm going to allow her to talk a little bit something about that because it's a positive thing, and it's something that the media just doesn't highlight for us. Black women doing great things and our growth and what that looks like in our community. And so the younger ones behind you get to see it's possible. So can you share a little bit of your background with my viewers, please?
Yeah, definitely. I look young, but I'm a grown ass woman.
Oh,
thank you.
Okay.
Can I curse on here?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So yeah, I am 25, originally from Harlem, born and raised. I went to the University of Virginia. I graduated in 2017. Go Hooves. And since graduation, I have been working in finance, in financial product sales here in the city. And I'm actually transitioning into a new role and moving into nonprofit work.
Great. That's all amazing. All amazing. And I'm glad and proud, one, because you're my family, but that other young girls, such as your cousins, get to see, and you paved the way to show them that this can be done. So with Something's Coming Up, with the ending of September, and now moving into October, we ended with suicide awareness. I've shared candidly my struggles and some of my triumphs, but how I deal with it. And I don't want to label, nor do I like people to label me. So I don't like to say, we're going to talk about your depression. That's for you to label. What is it? What does it look like for you? And when did you first notice mental health, that you needed to take care of it and guard it and learn? What are some of the things that help you grow? What are some of the things are your triggers? How do you deal? How do you cope? And how do you move forward? And how, if you needed counseling, what were some of the things of when you first noticed that it was something different, a shift for you?
When I graduated from college, I think that was a point in time for me where, I was a recent college grad. I had about 4 months between when I graduated and when I started work. So during that time, I just, had a lot of time to sit with my thoughts. And then I just kind of started to notice a lot of things about myself and reflecting, like certain patterns of behavior, feeling constantly down and not understanding, where that was coming from. So I decided to just kind of look into therapy and, what are the benefits of therapy, like what are some reasons why people go to therapy. And I found that a lot of the things that I was experiencing were, reasons for me to, seek help. So I wanted to have a Black woman as my therapist because I wanted, to be with someone who would understand
and recognize our struggle.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. To be with someone who knows kind of what it's like to, walk in my shoes. So I started out going with her, and it's been I just came up on 3 years actually that I've been working with her. And
as you say that, let me interrupt you for a second and ask you. Most people are not that fortunate to find a therapist and stick with it, because it does, for me and for many, it takes time. Sometimes you find a therapist and it's not a click, and you've invested time and you kind of feel defeated. So I want to share. It's not always that easy to find someone that you connect with that easily. So I just wanted to touch point on that. So that's a great thing.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I reached out to a few different people because of that. I had, I have a close friend. She's a therapist herself, and she kind of helped to guide me through the process. And she reassured me that, sometimes the first person, the second person, the third person might not even be a fit, but to keep, looking. So I was fortunate that my current therapist, she, reached out to me. We had an initial conversation. We vibed, and even though like I liked her, it took me, I would say, about 4 or 5 sessions to actually open up.
Okay.
Yeah,
and that's very common. One of the things that I'd like to know from you is, what, if any, when you're in your emotions or your triggers, when they come up and you find yourself either in a dark place, a confused place, or an uncomfortable place, I can't label it for you, any of those places, or something that's just not sitting well within you that how do you cope? What do you do? How do you recognize the signs?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that I'm still working on. And being in therapy has helped me to recognize those signs. Initially, the biggest thing for me is when I would feel feel down, I would isolate myself. I would just kind of, stay in a room, distance myself from my friends, sleep a lot, kind of almost like not eat. Like those were a lot of like my typical signs. I would, just kind of go within. And with working with my therapist, and she's the one that identified to me, these are the things that you do when you're going into a depressive episode. So she worked with me to say, hey, when you feel like you only want to be by yourself, that is a time when you should reach out to someone. Whether that be a phone call, whether that be, texting someone. So that was the first thing for me. I know if I just don't want to be bothered by anyone, or if I'm, getting into a mood, now I'm at a point where I can say, okay, like, let me not be by myself. Let me make sure that I eat today. Let me make sure that, I get out of the bed.
Let me ask you this. With all those things, which are very helpful, and for me, what I find is we have a large family, and I know you have a lot of friends, and you have a sisterhood because you're in a sorority, correct? And yes. You can say your sorority name.
Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Okay, so you have pods of groups of strong women that can help you. But I know for me, in that, people look at me, and it's called masking. We're able to smile, we're able to be around people and look at you and act as if we are okay, and we're not. We mask so that you're okay, even though when we're not. And it presents different. So I say this to say, some people look at depression and think it looks like that. Someone who's sleeping, someone who is withdrawn, someone who isn't sharing, someone who's a loner. Depression has no look. I am a person that suffers with depression, and I can be in a crowded room and make you laugh and make sure that you're okay. And everyone presents differently. So what are some of the remedies that are helping you? If you can help somebody out here that's looking to say, one of the things I have to stress is you are not alone. You are not alone. You may not have someone you can reach out to. You may not have someone you can talk to or you feel comfortable with. In a family full of women, and our brothers, uncles, cousins, and sons, we're not willing to share that with them because many people do not understand that feeling and that darkness. So we carry that burden alone, and sometimes to a point that it bubbles over. And it could be catastrophic if we don't catch those signs. What is something you would share with something? Because one thing I can guarantee you, someone you know, someone you're close to, whether it's a sorority sister, a family member, someone you love, suffers, and they're not reaching out. What can you tell somebody that might save somebody to do different than maybe what we did, or something that's helped you?
Yeah. You mentioned, you suffer with depression. I have clinical depression, and I also deal with anxiety. So for me, initially, I was that person that didn't talk to anyone. would be surrounded by my friends, surrounded by, people that care a lot about me. But, ultimately, your mind is a powerful thing, and the things that, the scenarios that you create in your head and, your emotions are, oftentimes when you're in these dark places, they are capable of taking over, your rational thinking. So yeah, the biggest thing for me is not being alone. Because when I am alone, it's harder for me to combat those thoughts, because those are the things that I feel. There's nobody there to tell me, well, actually maybe let's look at it this other way. It took me a long time, and I'm still not fully at the point now where if I feel something or if I feel like down, to make sure that I reach out to someone. That takes a lot of patience, a lot of
because
self-work.
we're in a dark place, and how it was shared with me with my counselor is just like an addict, right? Like an addict, whatever their addiction is, that's their comfortable place. They don't necessarily want to be there, but that's their comfortable place. And even when they come out of that place, it's good, but that doesn't feel normal to them. So a lot of times when it can be self-sabotage, because we're doing things and things are great, and we're like, all right, why do I keep reverting back to there? Because we don't sometimes think we're worthy or deserving of peace and calm. For me, I'm at a place where I know I deserve it, but the smallest curveball that comes, and for me, that's providing for my family. That's my family looking a certain way. All pressures that we sometimes put on ourselves, we go back to, as uncomfortable as it is, but that's what we know. That's where we cope, and we have to keep pushing. One of the things that I always say, and I share, push through the pain. And I say to you, no matter how dark it gets, push through the pain. There are days where I'm like, I'm not going to make it through today. I'm not. So the promise, and it's psychological games. They're little fires we're constantly putting out in our own brain, constantly. And I say to myself, okay, today is not the day that I'm going to take my life. I'll do it tomorrow. It's weird as that sounds, but at least I know I bought myself one more day.
Yeah.
I'm going to get through today, and then I'll do it tomorrow. But then when I get to the ration is, I got to say the same thing tomorrow. But today, all the goal is to get to the next day. And so I say to you, little messages of hope, push through the pain, even if it's just for today. And I've always told you, I don't care what time it is. Most viewers will say, well, how's a depressed person going to call a depressed person? How does a mental health person help another mental health person? How? Because I understand her walk. I understand her pain. And when she's talking to me, I don't know her exact struggle or why, nor can I fix it. But one thing I can share is we don't always want somebody to fix it. We want to be heard. We want to be seen. And we want to get better.
Yeah.
What for you is a message that you want to put out there? How do you want the medical field? Because it does, for me, it has to start with them. They've got to change the way they're helping, healing, and medicating. How could the medical field, in your opinion, change it to make it better for people in our community struggling?
Yeah, and well, the medication part is definitely something that I want to touch on, but while I had success with finding my therapist and, it being my first try, I didn't have the same success with my psychiatrist and finding a psychiatrist. And for people who may not know the difference, your therapist is, someone you have talk therapy with, where a psychiatrist is a medical doctor, and they're the ones that are able to prescribe medication to you. So for me, when my therapist said that I needed to see a psychiatrist, the one that I initially was seeing, she kind of looked at me with the same stigmas that a lot of people look at, people who deal with mental illnesses. When she ran, tests on me, it was only to see if I was a drug addict. She didn't really take a whole holistic approach to prescribing me medication. It was just, okay, check, you're not on drugs, you're not pregnant, you're not this. So that
textbook
yeah,
remedy.
Exactly. And the place where I was going was in the Bronx. So a lot of the patients are people who are of color, low income neighborhoods. So a lot of the solutions were just kind of like to get us in the door and get us out. It wasn't really like my appointments would be maybe like 5 minutes long, and she didn't know who I was as a person. And it wasn't until I shared my experiences with, other medical professionals that they were like, okay, well, did she check this? Or, if I shared it with a peer, they would say things like, oh, it doesn't seem like you're getting like the highest level of care. So it wasn't until I was able to go to another psychiatrist and explain, my previous experiences, and she's the one that pointed out to me, well, actually, she should have done this.
Right.
Because I'm not a doctor. I don't know.
You don't know what should be taking place.
Exactly. So that is something that, you have to, it's unfortunate, but you have to be your biggest advocate. You have to keep pushing and fighting and not giving up, because this is your life and it's their check. Exactly.
And that's how, unfortunately, how I look at it. We're trying to live, we're trying to survive and get better, and they're collecting a check. And I won't say all, but many of them, I liken it to prison. So I've been hospitalized several times. Literally, when you go in and you're in a 24-hour hold, and then after your 24-hour hold and you're transferred to a facility, you are stripped. No shoelaces, no belt, anything that can harm you, but they don't. And the main thing we're fighting for is to be seen and to be heard, and they don't see you. They see a body. What are you on? Because they assume everyone who comes in here has to have a file and is on a list of things. And they're not a place for remedy. They're not a place for healing. They're a holding cell so that you don't commit suicide at that minute. There is group therapy, but you can't mix addicts and abusive people and mentally ill, depression, everybody together.
Yeah.
How do you heal? So my plea is to the medical field: hear us, see us, and let's make a change. We want to change. And as much as we may have each other, we can't always heal each other. Because if you call me and I'm a dark place, you're helping me pull me out of my dark place, because now I'm focusing on getting you better. But I'm not healing. But we're still there for each other. So are there any last words you want to share that are important to you, that's heard? Because I want to see you and I hear you. And you are not alone, and I love you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest thing is sometimes if there are people people in your life that don't understand mental health and don't understand, the struggles that you may be going through, like, it's also important not to talk to those people and tell them, because they can be triggers for you as well. For me, I have those people in my life that I know if I go to them and I try to explain, what I'm dealing with mentally, that their response is only going to make me feel worse. So it's understanding that boundary of, okay, this person, I can't discuss that with them. So it's finding those people in your life who you can talk to about certain things, and also not feeling shame. I think a lot of it is shame surrounding mental health and mental illness, us being in the Caribbean family, and, oh, you're crazy.
Right. Because it's foreign to them. Yeah. It's foreign. One of the things I can share with you is when you are around someone who doesn't get it, because I had a habit of being angry at them, and I'm upset with them, and why aren't you helping me, and why don't you care? And your lack of care means you don't love me. And it took a long time, but I've gotten to a place where they can't help what they don't understand. They don't know how I'm suffering. They don't know that when I say one thing to you and you're like, stop it, get over that, that's nonsense, that's in your head. They don't know now that they've set me back 5 more steps. And now I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? But they don't understand. And we can't penalize them for what they can't fix or what they don't know.
Yeah.
That's their coping mechanism. And that's the stigma that you brought up. Not my child.
Right.
Not my cousin, not my family. And it's easy to just say, come on. It's okay. Let's stop it. You're fine. We love you. What you need? Let's go do it. They don't get it. And we, although we're suffering, we can't beat them up for not knowing.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something that I had to learn as well, because in the beginning, for me, it was, well, fuck you. You don't know what I'm dealing with. And it was, well, if I tell you what I'm dealing with, you would feel like shit for saying that to me. And as someone who does take medication and has made the decision to take medication, when I initially made that decision, and there are people in my immediate family that don't know that. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that like when I initially tried to express, you know, my wanting to get help, I was met with, you know, not the response that I was expecting from close family members. So that once, like you said, set me back, because I tried to be transparent and, you know, say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with and I'm trying to be better. And then it happened again when it came to the point of, you know, my doctor saying, we believe that medication would help you. This is what we're recommending. And it's, especially in the Black community, if one of your cousins comes and they're like, oh, I got high blood pressure and the doctor gave me this medication, nobody ever tells them, oh, don't take that.
Right.
Because if they don't take it, they'll die.
Because mental health is not something that's talked about.
Yeah.
And it's in your mind.
Yeah, it's just your mind. Just get over it.
You can come and say, I have high blood pressure. Oh, take the medication. Oh, I got diagnosed with cancer. Oh, we're going to pray for you. You're going to beat this. Every other disease is met with some kind of empathy and support. And wow, yo, I hope she fight. Like, but mental health, because you want to inflict pain on yourself, it's a disease. And people don't get it. But we've got to be strong enough to know, let's start educating them. And you may not understand it, but I'm going to keep speaking until it's my last breath. And I plead on the medical field to let's get this right. Because we now have kids and generation of kids that social media and electronics is all they know. And when you separate them from that, you're seeing the change. And when you see kids that are not talking or they're being bullied and they can't express themselves, they're coming back to your schools, to your offices. These are adults. These are kids that are going to be adults. They're either shooting up the school or now they're going to come start shooting up the office because no one is looking at them and no one is listening to them. Stop looking at us like a number or a pill or a check. Look at us like we matter. We are not alone and we're trying to be heard. So I want to say thank you. Thank you, because I know this is not easy.
I'm a very private person.
Yeah, very private. And I'm going to say this to our family that may not understand it, and to those friends of ours who may see this video and say, why would they go public with this? You're asking why is why we're going public with this. Because if I don't talk about it and I don't express it and we don't get it out, it stays inside and it's going to boil over. And it's just a matter of when. So when you ask yourself, why are we talking about this? It's not for your pity. It's not for your sympathy. It's to educate you. And someone in your family is struggling. Someone in your family is not coming to you. And if it's you, you're not alone. Reach out to someone. Speak to someone. I thank you again, Taylor, for being a part of this. It means the world to me. This wasn't done to hurt anyone in our family. This wasn't meant to expose anything. It's meant to help us and what we struggle with and what we're suffering with. So I ask you, I say thank you again to you. You're welcome back anytime. Follow. Something's coming up on all social media platforms. But I thank you for tuning in. And I thank you for caring enough to watch the whole thing. Something's coming up. Bring it up, bring it out, and learn from it. We love you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Taylor.